Make sure we got everybody here. All right, so we're just going to get started here, everybody. I really appreciate you guys dropping in. This is something that I've wanted to do for quite some time now, and feel with playoffs coming up, that I think it's high time that we just get some really good information for you on the nutrition side when it comes to hockey performance. Now, I'm going to be throwing out a lot of numbers, um, and I don't expect you to remember everything, but we're going to be uploading this up to YouTube shortly after. So if there's anything you found interesting, or maybe some calculations that maybe you want to try for yourself, if you don't catch it right now, don't worry about it. We're going to be uploading that up to YouTube, and you can grab it and pause and do your thing, so you can get the information that you feel is really valuable to your game. So we're just going to jump right into it here. So for those of you that don't know me, number one, wait, before you even get started, I'm not going to just read the slides for you guys. I'm going to go through the information. You can read it, or just however you learn best, I think is going to be the best way for you to go about this. But I'm Northern Ontario's only certified sports nutritionist with the International Society of Sports Nutrition. There's less of 30 of us in Canada. I've been a strength and conditioning coach for over 25 years now, almost 30 years, man. But what I feel that I've been able to do really well is take a more of an integrative approach to get nutrition and fitness information really especially at the facility here at VO2 Peak, for those of you that haven't trained here, to really get all that information together. And it's all very, very science-based. I think it's really important to get you the most research information possible. So the information that, especially on the nutrition side, that you guys are going to hear today is from the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition. But we're just going to cut through all that stuff. So we're going to go through some of the basics. I think is going to be valuable to go through. And now hockey has some very interesting nutritional demands. And I think I'm a car guy. So I think it's really important to fuel a performance machine like it's a performance machine. And it's one of the key things when it comes to hockey performance is going to be nutrition. Everyone trains really hard. Everyone works really hard on the ice, but nutrition is going to be one of those things that is going to really be a gigantic help in your game. So just like any performance machine, you have additives that you can add to fuel. You have the fuel that you should be using. Well, your game, if you're a player or a coach, you should be taking a good focus on the nutrition if you're really interested in trying to really ramp up your performance. There's not much that's going to change your game as much as nutrition's going to, if you compare someone side by side versus that's going to be working really hard and not really paying much attention to it, to someone that is. There's going to be gigantic differences. So some of the things we're going to go through today are going to be calories and macronutrients, hydration, and also some supplementation that in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition has been shown to help improve your performance. So let's get into it here. So some of the basics really is like, what is a calorie? So I think, we hear it all the time, but a calorie is just a unit of energy. That's a measure of food that's provided to the body. So whenever we eat, our body is going to use the energy. It's going to break down that food and turn it into energy for us to perform any functions, like me wave my hands around like I am now, to performing on the ice and everything in between. So really think of calories as just the fuel that your machine runs on. So if you eat too many calories to maintain your body weight, then you're going to gain weight. If you don't eat enough calories, then your body's going to lose weight. So it's really important when it comes to hockey to make sure you are consuming enough calories, so that you will have enough fuel coming in to fuel the machine, but also for a lot of the bodily processes are going to be vital for your performance as well. So macronutrients, you're going to hear me talk a lot about macronutrients, and thinking on each of them. Now, the three main ones that we're going to be discussing today are going to be fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. You've probably all heard this stuff before, but just to cover it real quick. So fats are going to be a very dense energy source that's going to that aids in the production of hormones and enzymes that are going to be vital for your body, and then also in fat soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K. Now, the one thing with fat is it can be very valuable, especially when there's a high calorie need, because per gram, per gram of fat, you're going to get 9 calories, whereas with protein and carbohydrates, you only get 4 calories per gram. So if you're really striving to get more calories, consuming more fats are going to be very beneficial for you. Now with protein, I think it's probably one that's underfed by most people. And it's very important, not just in muscle growth and repair, most people have heard, but also in hormone and enzyme production as well, and also in the regulation of your metabolism. And now it does that in a really pretty interesting way, where if you consume protein, your body's metabolism is going to increase because of the need to help break that protein down, because it's a little bit more difficult for your body to break down protein than it is for carbohydrates, and especially fat. So it raises your resting metabolism through that thermic effect of feeding, and you're going to get a higher resting metabolism just by consuming protein, let alone the benefits that you get from muscle repair, growth, and the hormone and enzyme production that you get from it as well. Carbohydrates, you're going to hear me sing the carbohydrate song today quite a bit. It's the body's preferred energy source during intense exercise. So during hockey games and practices, it's going to be the preferred fuel source that your body's going to use. And it's the form that we're going to hear a lot of today is called glycogen. So glycogen is how your body stores carbohydrates, and it stores it in your muscles, and mostly in your muscles and your liver. So think of it like a nitro tank on your body, where it empties very quickly. It can fill quickly, but if you are going to be using it, it's really important to fill it up. Nothing worse than just feeling like you just don't have it when it comes to fuel. And carbohydrates are going to be a gigantic part of that process, especially as a hockey player. So what we're going to discuss here, I think this is going to be some of the most important parts, is going to be the nutrient timing. So the days before the game, we consider that really like the whole week before a game, because you have practices and training and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be important to make sure that you have nutrition leading up to the game. Game day nutrition isn't just about game day. We have to consider the entire week as a crucial part to make sure that you're fueling enough, that you've consumed enough protein where you can repair and grow whatever muscle that maybe you've damaged, to make sure that you're fueling, like refilling, I should say, those glycogen stores. So we're gonna use a 150-pound person as an example throughout the whole presentation, just to make sure we keep things consistent and to give you kind of like numbers to go by when it comes to calculating some of what you're going to see today. So to really get to optimal levels of energy and top up those glycogen stores, we're going to have to consume enough fuel, so enough carbohydrates in particular. So carb loading can be really beneficial to maximize, to really fill up that glycogen tank. And we can do that by consuming 5 to 7 grams per kilogram of body weight. I'll give you an example of what this looks like in just a second. And then on the protein side, we should be consuming 1.2 to 2 grams per kilo of body weight per day as well. And I would even argue for some people that could be even higher. And then we should kind of round out the rest of the calories with fats of 0.6 to 1 gram per kilo body weight per day. But to really center most of your diet, to make sure that you're getting enough protein to repair and grow muscle, and also to really fuel up those carbohydrates, those glycogen stores, is going to be really important. So all in all, the days leading up to your game, so let's consider it each day of the week leading up to your game, to make sure that you get enough calories, so you are getting enough carbohydrates, protein, and fat, so your body can run optimally before the game. So let's take a look and see what that looks like. So in this 150-pound subject, so this kind of fictitious person here, they're going to consume 5 to 7 grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of body weight. So that's going to be a total of 340 to 476 grams per day of carbohydrates. Protein is going to be 1.2 to 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. So this person would consume, let's call it 82 grams to 136 grams of protein each day. And then fat would be 0.6 to 1 gram per kilogram of body weight per day. So we're looking at about 41 to 68 grams of fat per day. So you see this big spread of calories, right? Of total daily calorie intake leading up to games of 2050, let's call it 2054 to 3060. So just like anything, whether it's medication or supplements or anything, we should always start on the lowest end. So start on the low end and then kind of work your way up when it comes to any of these. And everyone's very, very different. Some people operate better with lower calories. Some people operate better with higher calories. Some people's demands are just more. Some people train more. There's so many different reasons why this could be a big spread. And it's to find out what that's like for you. And the only way to really do that is going to be through some trial and error. So to not just begin this when, let's say if you were to start this kind of tomorrow, we want to make sure that if you did have a really important game coming up, to try to give yourself some time to really figure out what works really well with you. So to try to figure out how many carbohydrates, fat, protein work well best for you and the way that you perform. So next is going to be game day nutrition. So this is one that everyone has like their thing that they like to do during the day when it comes to the game, like game day nutrition. They have their meal that, some people are really superstitious. So they have the thing that they have to eat and it's got to be at a certain time, all that kind of stuff. Sure, some of you players are already kind of thinking about it. So general recommendations, and again, we can really get more finely tuned if we're working together, like more one-on-one, but just as a general recommendation, having having a meal about 2 hours before your meal, your game, I should say, or more, just to make sure that we begin that process again of topping up those glycogen stores again, to have that nitro tank filled, and to really start that process, and to have it about 2 hours or more before the game starts, just to make sure that that process is started. You're starting to metabolize that food. And then you would also, about 45 minutes to 60 minutes before the game, to have really easy to digest carbohydrates, to again, just to really make sure that you're completely filled and you're good to go. So, and that could be really anything. And this is where it's really important to understand that to have fast acting carbohydrates that are easy to digest, they can come in the form of like a carbohydrate solution, like a sports drink, dried fruit, even candy is a great option, honestly, when it comes to the notion of filling up, because it's easy to digest and your body's just going to be able to absorb it quickly. And that's going to be important now. Things to really consider is high fat or high fiber meals before a game typically aren't really recommended because of the gastrointestinal distress that can go under. It happens here all the time where somebody has a hamburger and feels like crap and then just can't really perform that well, or actually even gets physically sick. So you don't want to feel that way. And a lot of times that comes through with high fat, high fiber meals. And to try to find foods that work well with you. Some people do well with bread, some people don't. Some people do well with rice, again, or potatoes or whatever. When it comes to their game day meals, it's to try to experiment to see what does really good with you. So the importance of game day nutrition is to make sure you're going to be supporting the energy needs, so to have the calories that you're going to need. And if you're going to consume enough calories, then you should be getting enough carbohydrates, fat, and protein to really support the process that you're going to be going through during the day. So again, support the muscle function that you're going to need for that game. Again, to avoid those high fat meals close to game time, just to prevent that discomfort, and just to make sure you're consuming enough calories to support your game. So what that might look like for a 150-pound player, excuse me, is going to be 3 to 5 grams per kilo of body weight of carbohydrates. So 204 to 304 grams per day on game day. 340, excuse me. Protein is going to be 1.2 to 1.6 grams. And again, this could be even higher, but everyone's very different. And the most crucial part is going to be to have enough carbohydrates for that day, again, to make sure those glycogen stores are filled. But some people might operate with a little bit better. Some of you that I have worked with or I'm working with right now on the nutrition, you'll know that sometimes I like this to be a little bit more as well. And then fats is 0.5 to 0.8 grams per kilo body weight. So for this example, we're looking at 34 to 54 grams of fats for the day. So you can see the calories here are a little bit lower than your kind of days leading up to the game day. And again, everyone is very different. So what I've noticed is that many people don't consume the same amount of food because of the game day lead up, like all the things that have to go on during the day, like the warm up and all that good stuff, just traveling for the game, all that stuff kind of really matters. So again, if you know that you operate with maybe more, operate better, I should say, more if you were to consume more, then lead those calories up. And again, you're not going to know that until you really start to experiment with things. So paragame. So that's during the game. This one is, there's so many different ways that people kind of approach this, but during the game, the way that I like to approach it is it's really optimal time to really focus, make sure that your hydration is on point. And it's really important to really nail that down. And carbohydrates as well. But if the game lasts longer than an hour, but you don't really know if that's going to happen, right? The only time that happens, it's going to be if overtime is going to happen. So the way that I typically recommend this is at the onset. So at the beginning of the first intermission, that's when we would begin hydrating with a carbohydrate solution, like a sports drink, to begin the process of getting those carbohydrates in case the game does go to overtime, so you don't feel like super sluggish and that glycogen tank is completely empty and your body just can't break down the fat fast enough to support the kind of activity that you're going to be doing. So it's almost like we don't know if the game's going to last an hour. Most don't, but as kind of a preemptive sort of strike to begin the process of having the game day recommendations that I'm going to recommend for you guys coming up here is going to be really valuable. So during the game, not the time really for protein and fats, again, because of that GI distress. This is going to not really be super beneficial to you. The carbohydrates are going to be a lot more valuable during this time. So just quick energy sources like energy gels is another one. Some people don't react well with those. Some people do. Again, sports drinks, dried fruit, candy, bananas, just things that that work well with you. So this is the typical scenario. It's not a gram per kilo thing. It's just 30 to 60 grams of during the game. Again, everyone's very different. We're looking at 120 to 240 calories during the game in carbohydrates, as you can see here, as fat and protein aren't really much of a focus. So post-game nutrition, it's probably one of my favorite times. Again, this is one of those things where if there's more than one game in a day, nutrient timing is going to be extremely valuable. So if you play one game, whenever it is, and then a couple hours later, you have to play, you best have that meal, that post-game meal right away to make sure that you're giving yourself enough time to digest and reload that glycogen and start that process all over again. And the whole thing, maybe some of you might have heard this before because it's still kind of ongoing, is the whole like anabolic window. Like if you work out and you need to have protein right away, otherwise that workout's kind of a waste. We know that through research that has been recently been done, that that's really not a thing anymore. As long as you get your total daily amount of protein, that's what matters most. So if you're not getting the full amount of protein you should be in a day, if you were to have a protein shake right after your workout, it's really not going to matter because you need to meet that total daily requirement. But if you're only going to have one game in a day, the post-game nutrition, it's not super complicated. This is where you can have a full spectrum meal, great time to consume fats to really help you get some more calories in, maybe because you didn't consume a lot before the game. And again, to have total support here of having carbohydrates again to the ever popular filling the glycogen stores, then also protein is going to be valuable here as well. To these all work great together, where we can see we get a bit more uptake of those macronutrients when we get them combined together. So we want to make sure that we're consuming enough calories to support that recovery process. So what that could look like is carbohydrates of 1 to 1.2 grams per kilo of body weight. So in this case, it's going to be 68 to almost 82. Let's just call it 82 grams. Protein, 0.2 to 0.4. Again, this is just for a meal. 0.2 to 0.4 grams per kilo of body weight. So we're looking at 14 to 27. Again, I would argue that we could even make this much higher, but fats 0.5 to 0.8, where this would be a 34 to 54 grams of fat, because we had pretty low fat earlier, right? So this is kind of where we can make up some ground. An important thing to note too, that these numbers are all, so this post-game meal, your in-game, like your peri-game nutrition and your pre-game, all that stuff all counts towards your total day. So you'd be surprised really how easy this can be when we all kind of sum it all together on just how easy it can be to get all these calories. So hydration and performance. So this is something that's going to be really extremely valuable. And I've got a great hydration calculator that I put together that if anybody wants, you can reach out to me. I've got my email on the end of it, so you can just fire off an email. I'll be happy to send it out. The best way to not get dehydrated is to start off your game by being hydrated. So we can start that. Really, it starts the days leading into the game as well. Again, always remaining hydrated so you don't get so dehydrated. You don't want to start a game being dehydrated because you're going to sweat so much and you're going to probably drop even more weight. And somehow valuable being hydrated is for your performance and cognitive function. So just like your thought process, how fast you can think on your feet, that kind of stuff. Hydration is going to be a big part of your performance. So levels of dehydration, again, we're going with our 150-pound example here. Mild dehydration is when someone would lose 1 to 2% of their total body weight. So in this example, we're looking at 1.5 to 3 pounds. We would consider that mild dehydration. Moderate would be 2 to 5% or a 3 to 7 pound loss. And then severe dehydration, which this is pretty dangerous, is we're looking at 7 pounds or greater loss in sweat at 5% or greater when it comes to someone's body weight. So if we break down each of them, any dehydration is not going to be good. We're going to see an impact on your performance and at different levels as well. So the more dehydrated you get, the more dangerous it gets. But if we stay to the performance side, then we can see that we're going to see changes in performance, and it's just going to get worse and worse as time goes on. So at 1 to 2%, you're going to see that's where people might feel thirsty. So if you feel thirsty, then you're already dehydrated. Reduce saliva production, decrease urine output because your body notices that you're already dehydrated. So it's going to slow down those processes that hopefully be able to save itself for no uncertain terms. there's an increase in heart rate because your body's going to have decreased plasma volume, but you still have to get like red blood cells to get to the site of the working muscle with oxygen rich blood, and you have to be able to clear that working muscle from all the waste products that you've produced, and then the CO2 and all that stuff. So you're going to get a higher heart rate when you have dehydration. So that can also impact your performance as well. So on top of that, we're also going to have an impaired cognitive function when it comes to alertness, concentration, reaction time. So basically, the game of hockey, you goalies out there as well, being alert, poor decision making, we can see all of that happen. And very often we can see it happen when someone is going to be dehydrated. Now, it's not always the case, but of course, everyone's going to be very affected differently. But we can see through research that these are going to be affected. So even just a small decrease, like, let's just call it 2 pounds with a 150-pound person can be a big issue when it comes to their performance. And if we're thinking at being at a high level, when fractions matter, to have any advantage you can have, if being hydrated is part of it, then I think that's a really valuable piece. Then moderate dehydration. So losing 3 to 7, so the same person losing 3 to 7 pounds, we're going to see a much higher increased heart rate, even a decreased blood pressure, and then thermoregulation. So your body's ability to kind of withstand heat is going to go down as well. So this is going to be the increased in body temperature. And also, this is where things are going to start to feel a lot harder. And the performance effects, again, to be noticeable decline in performance, and especially endurance sports, maybe not as valuable to hockey, but you've seen how much you sweat in a game and the amount of sweat that you can lose in a game. So endurance, strength, high intensity exercise capacity, again, very vital to hockey players. And then this is where you might start to experience the headaches, the dizziness, and then also fatigue, but like fatigue at a different level. This is kind of where things get really dangerous with severe dehydration. So a substantial plasma volume loss. So basically your blood is getting thicker and thicker as time goes on. So it's making it harder and harder for your body to work, to just really for it to do what it needs to do. So there's a major reduction in blood pressure, also blood flow. You just don't have as much plasma to be able to flow through everything. So it's going to be very difficult for your body to maintain anything, impairing your heat dissipation. And then there's a significant risk of exhaustion, heat exhaustion and heat stroke as well. So with all of this, I'm not even concerned about the performance effects, honestly. But of course, we're going to see this is where the cramps and nausea, sometimes vomiting, confusion, disorientation, like that's pretty serious. And then we get into the risk of collapse. And then even if you don't get any medical intervention, this is where things can really be life-threatening. So outside of performance, I think we have to really be mindful more of the safety of things. If a 150-pound person is losing 7 pounds of sweat, that's really a cause for concern. So, and it's not just water. So that's an important thing to understand as well. With some athletes that I've worked with, it's just instead of bringing in like a electrolyte solution, so like a sports drink, or like some of the tabs out there are really good now as well. But if you just consume water and you're not replacing those electrolytes like sodium, potassium, chloride, calcium, we're going to run into an issue where the more that you sweat and urinate, the more sodium and like more of those electrolytes you're going to get rid of. And then we're going to get into an issue where you're not going to have enough left to really contract effectively, and sometimes at a dangerous level where you don't have enough for muscles really to fire or to turn on or turn off. And that's where we see some people get into, like it's happened actually quite a lot recently when it comes to marathons, where people have died during a marathon. That's how serious this is. But if we don't go that far, if things aren't working again exactly as they should, and if we could have 2 identical athletes and one has the engine running exactly how it should and the other one is kind of misfiring even just a little bit, well, it's going to take more work for that other person to kind of keep up. So the importance of making sure that you are effectively hydrating, because hydration isn't just water, it's making sure that you have enough of the electrolytes coming in as well. So to make sure that you are consuming enough. Also, just to add even salt to food to taste, it doesn't have to be so much where it's kind of like just doesn't taste good. But to add salt to food, if you're not someone that really does it that often, or if you're eating clean, I think it's important to add salt to those foods because a lot of times we're not consuming a lot of foods that are going to have a lot of sodium in it. So it's just kind of food for thought, pardon the pun, but just to add some salt to whatever food you're consuming so you can make sure that you're helping out the process of getting more electrolytes like sodium into your body. So the piece here that I think a lot of people probably want to see is the supplements for performance. Now, it's really important to note that we consider the supplement is what we call an ergogenic aid, so something to help with performance. So the ISSN, so the journal that I get my information from and that I'm certified with, Exercise Sports and Nutrition Review, this is during an update that they had in one of the journals when it comes to the research and recommendations, just to kind of specifically get to understand what an ergogenic aid is. Any training technique, mechanical device, nutritional ingredient or practice, pharmacological method, psychological technique that can improve exercise performance capacity or enhance training adaptations. So bottom line, anything that can improve performance is an ergogenic aid. But we're going to focus just solely on the supplement. So like a nutritional ingredient or something that you can take. So also ergogenic aid training techniques. So some of the things that we do here, like velocity-based training and using heart rate monitors and things like muscle oxygen saturation monitors, all that kind of stuff. Again, those would be ergogenic aids. Psychological techniques like meditation and mindful practices, and then medical devices like knee braces for stability and that kind of stuff. They would all be considered an ergogenic aid, but nothing that I'm sure anyone wants to kind of hear about right now. So let's get into some that I know to be beneficial, like through the Journal of International Society of Sports Nutrition. We kind of classify different supplements being beneficial, more beneficial than others. So things to show strong effect. And those are some of the ones that we're going to be covering today. So hydroxymethylbutyrate. So this one, I find really, again, it's one of those fascinating things because I'm a sports nutritionist that HMB is proven to help muscle development. So we have to consider the development of a hockey player, not just their game, but again, the body as well, right? So we're not concerned so much about bodybuilding unless someone's very undersized, but to develop muscle when we're thinking about the strength and power production that we do when it comes to training, and also what they do when it comes to the game as well. Anything that can help that, if we can gain more muscle when we're trying to work on strength and power, is going to be really beneficial. And HMB is one of the calcium HMB is linked to help people gain up to 1 kilo of body weight of more muscle mass within 3 to 6 weeks of resistance training, especially in people that are new. So when it's best absorbed, when it comes to this, is just dividing your dose in 1 gram doses. So you would have it, say, at like breakfast, lunch, and maybe if you have like a post-workout shake, you can just have it with that. Again, it's been known to significantly increase lean muscle mass and help reduce fat mass compared to just a placebo. So just like a pretend supplement. So one of those things that could be really beneficial depending on the time of year as well. So if you know that over the course of the season that you start to drop weight when you don't want to, it would be a good time to introduce that. Or during hard training time, so in the off season, by introducing HMB to help add more muscle mass when it comes to all the strength and power training that you should be doing. So creatine monohydrate. So if we would not have discovered creatine monohydrate and I would bring it out now, people would think I would be crazy. Creatine monohydrate is the most potent ergogenic supplement that we have. We can't find anything better. We keep trying, but it's just one of those things that creatine monohydrate really, it does as ordered. And it does a lot. Again, it'd be one of those things, like I said, um, if I would say, I have this little thing that you can take just about 5 grams a day, and it's going to enhance your high intensity exercise performance. So, like hockey, um, also extend the capacity of specific high intensity and intermittent exercise. Again, going back to hockey, um, muscular strength, power output. It actually does help with hydration status. There's neuroprotection against traumatic brain injuries, and also enhanced cortical excitability and cognitive performance, and so many other uses that have got some colleagues that are performing more and more studies on it. To have all of that ability in something that's really one of the less expensive supplements out there, like you would get this 100 grams for, I don't know, $50, maybe something like that. To have a supplement that does all of what it does and help you gain lean muscle mass, maintain that muscle mass during hard times as well. It's crazy to think that a supplement at that cost can do that much when there's so many others out there that are wildly expensive that will never do what creatine does. So it's one of those that you can take, you can do what we call, when it comes to trying to get the most out of creatine, of doing a bit of a what we call a loading phase. So 0.3 grams per kilo of body weight per day. For most people, it's going to be about 20 grams is typically like a loading phase, maybe a bit more depending on the person. And then after the 7 days, you would continue to use just 5 grams a day. But I don't really care about the loading phase, to be honest. It's not better. It's just, if we know, let's just say if playoffs are in 2 weeks and you were going to jump on creatine, as long as you're, perfectly, if you're healthy enough for any supplement, I would say do the loading phase so that you can be fully saturated, make sure that you could take advantage of the creatine monohydrate. And it is very safe. It's so safe that when in one of the long-term studies, 30 grams were taken a day for 5 years, every day. Just to run a 5-year study is crazy, but to do 30 grams a day, every day for 5 years, and there was no adverse conditions reported. And we're looking to just take 5 grams. So perfectly safe as long as you're already healthy, and really extremely valuable as well. And there's other applications outside of performance that it can be very beneficial for as well. Caffeine, the most widely used ergogenic aid out there, right? Start your morning off with a cup of coffee, right? Most people do. So with caffeine, it helps with quite a bit with aerobic, so things like long distance events, and things like anaerobic exercise, so things like shorter duration stuff like hockey as well. And it's been shown to improve speed, peak power, mean power, so like your average power over repetitions. And then also your improvements in repeat sprint performance. That kind of goes along with the mean power, but also improves mood. So, you have your first cup of coffee in the morning, feel kind of better about things. And also the reduced perceived exertion. So how hard something feels, and the decrease muscle pain. So if you're pushing really hard during shifts, and we've all gone through it, where there's a lot of pain and you're trying to get through it because of the burn and all that stuff, you're working really hard. Well, caffeine's going to help you not feel that as much, or not to the same kind of intensity. And also with caffeine, we see that there's more reps until failure as well. And we see that trained subjects, oddly enough, seem to get more of a significant benefit from caffeine. But then there's a flip side where regular caffeine users seem to get a reduced benefit. So if you want to get the most out of it, it's really beneficial to have kind of what we call a washout period, where you just stop taking it for a couple of weeks, like 10 days to 2 weeks, and then you would reintroduce it to really gain the full effect. And then what we also used to think was that caffeine would dehydrate people quite a bit, but that's really not the case. That's not what we know to really be true. It's nowhere near to the same effect, to the degree that we thought it was before. So for context here, the ergogenic, so like the performance enhancing amount, is 3 to 6 milligrams per kilo of body weight. So we see here, that's 204 to 408 milligrams. Like that can be a lot of caffeine for some, and some people might not operate well. I've seen other people that have tried that amount. You get kind of the jitters and that kind of stuff. Not good if you're trying to perform well. And something that's really important to really understand is that it's going to help conserve the carbohydrate use. So kind of using those glycogen stores, well, caffeine's going to help conserve those even a bit more. And I want to really stop myself there, where it's really important, I think, to understand that when adolescents using caffeine, we do not know the long-term effects of how it's going to affect you later on in life. Whether it comes to any kind of heart dysfunction or anything like that, we don't know the long-term use. Now, we see many young people taking pre-workouts, like multi-ingredient pre-workouts, and we see like with energy drinks, that kind of stuff. Of course, I really on occasion consume them as well, but we don't know the long-term effects. So I think it's important to really understand the risk versus reward, and then also to try to find a better understanding of long-term what some things like caffeine can have effect on you later on. And a real different one, sodium bicarbonate. So baking soda. I think this is one of those ones. This is like an old school hack where taking baking soda helps buffer a lot of the metabolites that kind of get built up when you're working really hard. And we see it in pretty boost performance in high intensity cycling, running, swimming, rowing, in particular tasks lasting 30 seconds to 12 minutes. So again, great when it comes to hockey, right? But the dose is pretty high. We're looking at about 20 grams for a 150-pound person to consume in a day. Now, the common side effects, if you take that much, especially in one sitting, is going to be bloating, nausea, even vomiting, abdominal pain. Now, especially abdominal pain, it happens in low incidence, but it's still a side effect that can happen. But the strategies to kind of reduce that is going to be just taking smaller doses, adjust the timing for it. So if we're looking at the typical recommended ingestion timing is 1 hour to 3 hours before exercise. Well, if you take it with a high carbohydrate meal, we can really mitigate some of the downside. So you could, if you were to consume your pre-game meal 2 hours before, you would consume some sodium bicarbonate a couple hours before, and then take it with your carbohydrate solution maybe. But keep in mind that if you're to take it just like this, that it's kind of salty. It doesn't taste very good. So to have coated capsules to make that a little bit easier, but then there's the idea of the cost involved. Like this baking soda, super cheap, but once you start adding it into capsules, the cost goes up. But a weird thing kind of happens where it has a real synergistic effect when it comes to creatine, where it helps. They both kind of work together even better. And then the next one that we're going to talk about, beta alanine as well. So beta alanine, I feel, was kind of important to note. And the reason for it is it's not necessarily going to directly affect your hockey performance, but it will directly affect your training performance. So especially when we know that there's going to be times in your training where you're going to be working for 1 to 4 minutes. That happens all the time, where we'll have bouts of 2-minute sprints, that kind of stuff. I think it's really important to ramp up your beta alanine during those times. Now, it helps with exercise performance, especially of that kind of that time frame. So it's really, beta alanine is something that multi-ingredient pre-workouts will have in it in just a small amount. Some of you that might have taken it might kind of know this feeling of the paresthesia, like the tingling that you might get a lot of times in your face, arms, hands, that kind of stuff. And it takes about 1.6 grams for most people to feel it working. Where paresthesia, it's just tingling. There's nothing really outside of that side effect. It's just tingling that you would get. There's nothing wrong that's going on. But some people like that feeling, some people don't. So you'll see many pre-workouts, like multi-ingredient pre-workouts, will add it in to make it feel like it's working. But as you can see, it takes 4 to 6 grams of beta alanine to really get the full benefit of it. And most pre-workouts only have that 1.6 grams. So we need like 3 times that amount and we need it over the course of about 2 to 4 weeks. So most of the time we tend to go for the higher ranges to get fully saturated to be able to use it best. So I think it's really important to note that multi-ingredient pre-workouts, sometimes they might have valuable ingredients, but sometimes not in a dose high enough to get the ergogenic benefit, so the performance benefit from it. And again, beta alanine works great coupled with creatine and sodium bicarbonate. So if I had to like pick my spots here, creatine, and let's say if you're 18 years old and older, I would say creatine, caffeine, beta alanine, sodium bicarbonate. That would be like one of those ones you can experiment with to see if it works well for you. I think is going to be pretty valuable that way. So that's pretty much the presentation. But if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer. None? Okay, so we're going to be posting this presentation also on YouTube. So if there's any of the numbers, I know I threw a ton at you guys, but if there's any numbers that maybe you didn't understand or anything you want to cover, you can reach me at any of these here. So my email address, phone number, and also on at the website, but you can just shoot me an email for anything any questions you might have in regards to the to some of the things that we presented here today. And also, if you are looking for any consultations for your team or players or team for next year, we're happy to help you just to make sure that you guys get the most, or at least get good information that's really actionable and safe for the population that you're working with. But if there's no questions, that is going to be it. Thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out for obviously longer than a half an hour. But I'm super excited. We're going to do more of these. I think it's really important to get good information to you. And we're going to be covering a whole range of topics. So if there's anything that you want to cover that you feel is really beneficial for you or your team, don't be afraid to reach out, and we'll be happy to help you and put together a presentation for you. Anyways, that is it. I'm out.